Randasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to our Friday and Saturday Bhakti Shastri series on the nectar of instruction. In the last class, if you remember, we discussed certain part of text 2. So I'll just recap what we discussed. We began with text 2 discussion on the 6 fault that destroy our devotion, and we went into the concept of atyahar. Then we discussed this first theme, simple living, high thinking, why Prabhupada speaks about it, because that is the easiest way by which the jiva who is in the Bhairanga Shakti can smoothly enter into the Antaranga Shakti. So human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. That's why Prabhupada speaks about it. And these 3 energies he speaks. And he gives the definition of what is a Mahatma, what is a Duratma, and how the Duratmas are caught up in these 3 kleshas, facing these 4 problems: birth, death, old age, disease. After giving this background, then he starts discussing about atyahar. Since everyone requires possessions, but if you take more than our needs, then we do atyahar, and how atyahar leads to Lauria, greed, that he speaks. Now atyahar naturally causes prayas. So the next paragraph onwards, Prabhupada speaks about prayas. And 2 paragraphs he devotes for prayas. And then how prayas also can come in the field of religion. This is very important, which Prabhupada speaks about it, that our prayas, even in the matter of dharma, should be for emancipation or attaining Krishna Prema. not for Artha and Kama. So that's how Prabhupada also speaks about Prayas. In the next paragraph, Prabhupada speaks about Prajalpa, which we quite in brief discussed about Prajalpa. So today we will discuss now Jana Sangha. So Jana Sangha, let me go to the PPT. So you can see here that now today we will be discussing paragraph 15, that is Jana Sangha. Okay. Paragraph 15. Jana Sangha refers to associating with persons not interested in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada gives a very generic definition of what exactly is Jana Sangha. And if you have observed in text 2 and in text 3, again, Rupa Goswami is going to emphasize on Sangha Tyagat, giving up association of non-devotees. So that means it is very, very important. That's why Rupa Goswami has discussed it twice. So here, a negative injunction is mentioned that one should not associate with persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. One should strictly avoid such association. So very strictly one should avoid this kind of association. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami quotes two references from the, I think, Katyayani Samhita, where this is from the Sri Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya. Ramacharya quoted this verse, I guess. It is mentioned that I would prefer to enter into fire or to be in the clutches of a tiger than to associate with non-devotees. So it literally doesn't mean that, we should enter fire or go and become a victim of a tiger, but that is the kind of healthy fear we should have with respect to associating with non-devotees. So then Prabhupada says, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has therefore advised us to live only in the association of Krishna conscious devotees. Bhakta Sane Vas. So in the temples, the brahmacharis are staying in the association of other brahmacharis and the sannyasis. And at home, in the family, all are devotees. So that is also in one sense Bhakta Sane Vas only. One should always engage in the service of the Lord in the association of Lord's devotees. So even service has to be done in the association. And it is only in our association of devotees that our ahankar gets purified. So that is why it is very important that we live in the association of devotees and execute service in Krishna consciousness. That is the test of our ahankar. It is easy for a yogi to live alone in the Himalayas and practice severe austerities. It is easy for a jnani to live again in the Himalayas and study Vedanta and deliberate on the Upanishads, have intellectual stimulation. But both these inflate the false ego. Whereas the bhakti process purifies the false ego. It deflates the false ego. And as long as the false ego is not deflated or not purified and the real ego manifests, then the purification will not happen. And that purification happens in the association of devotees. So that is why staying in the association of devotees is not an easy task. It is a test for our false ego. So that's why the service also has to be executed in the association of devotees. Prabhupada says, association with those engaged in a similar line of business is very conducive to the advancement in that business. Consequently, materialistic persons form various associations and clubs to enhance their endeavors. For example, in the business world, we find such institutions as the stock exchange and the chamber of commerce. So even in the business world, we see that there are associations where they come, meet and discuss about business and then have business deals. So all this forum helps us to expand the business. Similarly, Prabhupada saying we have established this International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give people an opportunity to associate with those who have not forgotten Krishna. So we come in the association of devotees to remember Krishna. That is the principal thing we should remember. This spiritual association offered by our ISKCON movement is increasing day by day. Many people from different parts of the world are joining this society to awaken their dormant Krishna consciousness. So that's how Prabhupada speaks shortly in one paragraph about association. So here we end Srila Prabhupada's discussion on Janasangha. So up to Janasangha, only he has explained. Now, the next paragraph onwards, that is paragraph 16 onwards, is the Anuvritti commentary of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So let us now go to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary. I'll just show you here. Yeah, now the Anuvritti explanation will begin, 16 to 24. So let us go to Anuvritti explanation. Okay. Paragraph 16. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anuvritti commentary that too much endeavor to acquire knowledge on the part of mental speculators or dry philosophers falls within the category of atyahar, collecting more than needed. So if you remember when I discussed the concept of atyahar, I had mentioned too much collecting degrees in the head is also atyahar, many degrees filling the head. So the jnanis and the yogis trying to collect too much of knowledge, that is also falling in the category of atyahar. But knowledge about devotion, knowledge about bhakti, which is given in the Gita, Bhagavatam, and the various Gaudiya scriptures, that is not atyahar. Because the more we get this knowledge, the more our devotion increases. And the more our devotion increases, the more we realize that knowledge. So in that sense, this bhakti sambandhit gyan, it doesn't fall in the category of atyahar. But endeavor to acquire knowledge on part of mental speculators and dry philosophers falls in the category of atyahar, collecting more than necessary. They are collecting things in their head. Some people collect things for their belly. Some people collect things to fill their house. But this is collecting information in their head. So this also is atyahar. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, the endeavor of philosophical speculators to write volumes of books on dry philosophy devoid of Krishna consciousness is entirely futile. So some books on logic, on some subtle terms and all this without any touch of devotion, mental speculatory books or fiction books is today what you can see. Many fiction books have been written and they are very, very famous. All imagination of the mental factory. Just like the factory has a waste disposal which is thrown out, similarly the mental factory produces all waste thoughts which they write in their books. So much books today you find in the market which speak about all these kind of imaginative thinkings, and they are they have been sold in the name of so-called philosophy, but these are all dry philosophy which are devoid of Krishna consciousness. The work of the karmis who write volumes of books on economic development also falls within the category of atyahar. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is explaining what exactly is atyahar. From here only I derived the concept of atyahar. So the karmis also write a lot of books on Artha Shastra, how to do economic development, how to expand business, the business formula, or so many books are written by business magnates about how they became famous in their business line. So here my story of how I became a Fortune 500 company. So all these books also, they also fall in the Atyahar category. Similarly, those who have no desire for Krishna consciousness and who are simply interested in possessing more and more material things, either in the shape of scientific knowledge or monetary gain, are all included under the control of Atyahars. So this is again the materialists who want to possess more and more things. Ye dil mange more. So this is again Atyahar. So I have discussed this concept of Atyahar, and these are the different categories which Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is mentioning. Too much endeavor to acquire knowledge on the part of mental speculators. Then volumes of books written on that. Then volumes of books written by karmis on economic development and materialists who want to possess more and more. In the next paragraph, Prabhupada gives this karmi example. The example of a rich man becomes a cobbler. So this we will now just take this next paragraph where it is mentioned. Karmis labor to accumulate more and more money for future generations only because they do not know their future position. If they knew that there is next life and what they are going to become in the next life for making more and more money you make means more and more sinful activities you perform. And by that, what you're going to get in the future, if they knew, then they would not do that. Because they don't know that future, that's why they accumulate more and more. Interested only in getting more and more money for their sons and grandsons, such foolish persons do not even know what their position is going to be in the next life. Then Prabhupada gives the example. There are many incidents that illustrate this point. Once a great karmi accumulated a vast fortune for his sons and grandsons. But later, according to his karma, he took birth in a cobbler's house located near the building which in his previous life he had constructed for his children. It so happened that when this very cobbler came to his former house, his former sons and grandsons beat him with shoes. Unless the karmis and gyanis become interested in Krishna consciousness, they will continue to waste their lives in fruitless activities. So Prabhupada speaks about the story of a karmi who accumulated a vast fortune for his sons and grandsons. He built a big palace and then he died. And in the next life, because he had done so much sin, he was born in a very low family, maybe in some shed there just outside this palace and the main road on the other side. Maybe he was born in a small hut there. And somehow by God's grace, he remembered, oh, it is I who had built this palace. And these are my sons, grandsons. So he went knocking the door. I have come. How are you doing? So what did the sons and grandsons who had grown up? They beat him and sent him off. So this is their position, Prabhupada is saying. Srila Prabhupada, especially once he was in America and he started expanding his Krishna conscious movement. And as the funds were coming, Prabhupada wanted to establish temples. So many of the churches which were not at all in use, they were available for sale. And Prabhupada was buying these churches and converting into temples and having the preaching expand. So once Prabhupada was going with some of his disciples to see one place for a temple, and they stopped in the car and Prabhupada saw the gate. The gate was very royal. Prabhupada appreciated, wow, nice gate. And then went to the palace. It was actually a palace. And he saw the fine artistry and the craft. Everything was very finely finished. So Prabhupada was very much appreciating everything about the building. And the devotees could not understand why Prabhupada is appreciating such a thing. And then Prabhupada asked, who is the owner of this place? Prabhupada he was a very rich millionaire, and now he has died. So he is very attached to his palace. Maybe he's been born as a lizard. Lizards are very attached. They get attached to the wall, right? So Prabhupada said maybe in his next life he would become a lizard because he's very attached to his house. He has built this house, very fine, refined and polished house. So this will be the result of his attachment to his house. So this is the kind of reactions we get. In another place, Prabhupada spoke about, especially in Bombay, we know that the Juhu temple case was going on. In fact, later on also it was going on. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj narrates this, that on the bench where you sit, in the court inside you go, there were bugs, there were termites. And Prabhupada explained that those lawyers who suck the money of their clients, now they are born as termites who are also now doing the same thing. Now before they were sucking the money, but now they are sucking the blood. So Prabhupada told this to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So we don't know what is the severe reaction we are going to get. And Prabhupada is giving one example here. Now the next paragraph, Prabhupada is quoting the Anuvriti explanation of Niyam Agra. Now I will take up this. I will explain the concept of Niyam Agra and then discuss that paragraph. Now Niyam Agra. Now this is very important for us to understand. Difference between rule and principle. What is the difference between rule and principle? Because niyama means rules. And why is the rule there? Because you have to follow a certain principle. So what is the difference between rule and principle? Here, rules are like roads and principle is like compass. Generally, rules are the best way to follow the principles. Now, first example. Now, compass, you have to go in the northern direction. You need a compass. The compass points out that this is the northern direction, because north means you're going to the Himalayas for spiritual enlightenment. So, for spiritual enlightenment means northern direction. So the compass shows us this is the northern direction. And then there is a road in that direction. So you have to reach the Himalayas, which is in the north, and the compass is pointing there. And there is a road which is going now in that northern direction. So the road in that direction is the best way to go in the northern direction. Similarly, the rule is the best way to follow the principle. The next example. Principle is to remember Krishna. Rules are 16 rounds. So if you chant a 16 rounds, then you will remember Krishna. I have pointed out here this most important principle which is quoted in also Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Smartavya satatam Vishnu Vismartavyo na jatu chit Sarve vidhi nishedyasu etayor eva kinkara. One should always remember Vishnu. Smartavya satatam Vishnu. And never forget him. Vismartavyo na jatu chit. All injunctions and prohibitions. Sarve vidhi nisheda. Vidhi means do's. Nished means don'ts. That is, we are speaking now about rules. Do's and don'ts are dependent on these two principles. Etayor eva kinkara su. So what is the principle? To remember Krishna and not to forget him. And the rules help us to remember Krishna. So we have this rule of chanting minimum 16 good rounds. So this is a rule. By following this rule, you will be able to accomplish the principle of remembering Krishna. And what are the don'ts, nishad? That we have these 4 regulated principles: no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. So if we follow that don'ts, then we will not forget Krishna. We will not forget Krishna. If we if we break any of the don'ts, then we'll not be able to remember Krishna. So that is why both the sides are given. To remember Krishna, there are the rules which are do's. To not forget Krishna, there are the don'ts. By following the don'ts, we will also remember Krishna. But in a negative sense, it has been said. So this is the difference between principle and a rule. Now, the third example what I have given is temple. The principle is to glorify Vishnu. The purpose of the temple is, the main principle is to glorify Vishnu. And the rules is that we build the temples according to Vastu Shastra. So that when we enter the temple, it helps us to remember Krishna. So this is how the principle and the rule should be understood. I gave this example. Now let us come to Niyamagra. What is exactly Niyamagra? We insist on rules without understanding the purpose or principle. What is Niyamagra? That we say, oh, you have to follow this rule. But what is the purpose behind following the rule? We have to achieve the principle. So I'm giving you 2 examples here. One is Bhishma's welcoming guest on deathbed. Now, it is a general rule that the guest, especially if they are great sages or the Lord, have to be welcomed. And how it has to be welcomed? That we have to give them a seat, we have to give them a glass of water. Even if that we cannot do, then at least we should speak some sweet words. So this is a rule on how to serve and honor great sages and pure devotees, because by doing that service, we get the mercy so that we can remember Krishna, or we get impregnated with spiritual impressions. So this is an important rule in order to accomplish the principle of Krishna Matir Astu. Our consciousness should be always fixed in Krishna. So insisting on the rules means that we insist, oh, you have to follow this rule. But if you don't achieve the principle of remembering Krishna, then what is the point in following the rule? So Bhishma, on his deathbed, when the Pandavas along with Krishna came and all the great sages came, because they knew that Bhishma is now going to speak, he's going to instruct Yudhishthira Maharaj. Now Bhishma had to welcome all the guests on his deathbed. Now neither he could welcome by giving them an asana, nor he could welcome them by speaking sweet words or offering water. In fact, he himself was thirsty, and Arjuna shot an arrow on earth and a spring of water came out, and that's how Bhishma had water, because he was thirsty for many days. So Bhishma, there on the deathbed of arrows, he just welcomed all the sages by his just eye movement. From his heart, he welcomed them just by gesture. He welcomed them. Neither he spoke, nor he physically served them, nor he spoke some sweet words, but just by his gesture and eye movement, he welcomed all the sages. So in one sense, he accomplished the principle, but he could not follow the rule. So Niyamagra means we insist on the rules without understanding the principle. Once in one of our temples, there was a festival, And the temple authorities had instructed us that all the guests who come should leave their footwear in the particular area. There was a footwear place which was designated, and everyone should leave their footwear and then go to the temple for taking darshan. So one of the devotee who was in charge there, he was directing all the guests to first go and leave their footwear and then go to the temple for darshan. So some guests had come and they were without footwear. And they came and this devotee asked, "Where is your footwear?" They said, "We have left in our car." No, get the footwear, keep it in the designated place, and then only you can go and take darshan. So the purpose of leaving the footwear was that, ultimately we should not wear footwear and keep the footwear near the temple, in front of the temple. It has a designated place where we should leave it. So this person was insisting on the rules that you have to leave the footwear here. Why have you left it in your car? So he made them forcibly go and get that footwear and keep it in that place, and then only I'll allow you to for darshan. So this is kind of a fanatism which is there when we insist on the rules without understanding the principle. So this is second example. Another example I have given is why respect to Brahmanas. Why is respect given to Brahmanas? The Brahmanas are called as Bhudevas. They are literally gods walking on earth. And they propagate the Vedic knowledge. In one sense, they are representatives of God. And in that sense, one should respect the Brahmanas. But what happened with the onset of Kali Yuga is, because we are born in Brahmana's family, we are having birth in Brahmana family, that's why everyone, all other castes should respect us. So they insisted on the rule without understanding the principle behind it. The principle is why we respect the Brahmanas, because they are representative of Krishna, they have realized Vedic knowledge, and they propagate Vedic knowledge. If the Brahmanas don't have that function, then you cannot respect them based just because they are born in Brahmana family. So the Brahmanas started insisting on the rules without serving the principle. And that's why the Shatrias and the Vaishyas and Shudras revolted, and whole degradation of the Varnashram happened with the beginning of Kali Yuga. So this is the second example of how we insist on the rules without understanding the principle. Now, Niyama, Agraha and Niyam Agraha. So Niyama and Agraha, when we combine, it becomes Niyam Agraha. But when we break it, we can break it and have two different meanings. This is how Sanskrit is. Any word can be broken and combined from different angles, and we can get different meanings. So, Niyam Agraha. First was Niyam Agraha. Now it is Niyam Agraha. Agraha means failure to accept. So the rule is there in order to accomplish the principle, but you don't want to follow that rule because it is difficult. So it is difficult to follow. It is not important. That's why I don't follow the rule. So rules are important to follow the principles. Example, road to reach the destination and cross country. So there is the road which ultimately will take you to the destination, northern direction, Himalayas. And you insist, no, I'll not take this road. I will go through the jungle path. You might get lost and you might not reach the destination. So this is how, when there is agraha means failure to accept. The rules are the best way to follow principles. Now, I have given one example about devotee dress. Now, the posture affects the psychology. Now, usually men dress in dhoti and kurta and women dress in saris. So our philosophy is we are not this body, we are the spirit soul. But especially if you go in the Western countries, the way people dress there, for us to remember Krishna or remember that we are not this body, we are spirit soul, it becomes difficult based on the way in the Western world people dress. So best is to follow the rules, is to cover the body fully, just like Mother Earth. 70% is water and it is covered. It is covered by 70% of the portion is covered by water. So similarly, when we follow the rules, we can accomplish the principles. And if we don't follow the rules, then the principle cannot be accomplished. So many times devotees, especially during Prabhupada's time, they were insisting that, we will also dress like the karmis and go and do book distribution so that we can attract the people. But Prabhupada was not so much in favor of it, because ultimately when we dress like the karmis, our consciousness also will affect in that sense. Our consciousness will affect. So that is why the rules have to be followed. And if we don't follow the rules, then we cannot accomplish the principles. So this is, first is what is the difference between principle and rule. And then we discussed niyam agraha and niyam agraha. And I gave some examples on this. Now coming to Prabhupada's purport. Agraha means eagerness to accept, and agraha means failure to accept. Accepting some of the scriptural rules and regulations for immediate benefit, as utilitarians advocate, is called niyamagraha. That means Krishna prasadam. We are supposed to take Krishna prasadam, and today is a feast, and you have had the feast, and after that some Rajbhog has come, and you are eager to have that. And you say, oh, when the prasad immediately comes, we should immediately offer it. So you are insisting, you are very eager to accept the principle, the rule of immediately having prasad. Why? Because for some immediate benefit. So you insist on following the rules for some immediate benefit. That is called as niyam agraha. But agraha means failure to accept. Neglecting the rules and regulations of Shastra, which are meant for spiritual development, is called niyam agraha. Like getting up morning 4:30 and attending the Mangal Arati. Because it's cold and you don't feel like getting up, so you don't follow this. You fail to accept this rule, but that is meant for your spiritual development, and you fail to accept it, then it becomes niyam agraha. So both niyam agraha, showing too much enthusiasm to follow the rule without following the principle, niyam agraha, failure to accept the rules which will help in advancing Krishna consciousness. Both are what? Both are what? They are unfavorable in the practice of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada has exactly described this whole paragraph. I have put in the slide and explained it. Accepting some of the scriptural rules and regulations for immediate benefit, as utilitarians advocate. Utilitarians means what? Utility is the principle. They say, I will utilize it because it is favorable for my comfort, not for my advancement. It is good for my tongue to taste. Prasadam, although I had feast and my stomach is full, but still there is some special item which has come, and it is when that prasad, immediately when it comes, immediately we should honor it. So we might insist on that rule without following the principle. This is niyam agraha, and neglecting the rules which are meant for spiritual development is called as niyam agraha. The word agraha means eagerness to accept, and agraha means failure to accept. By addition of these two words, the word niyama, with the word niyama, the word niyam agraha is formed. Niyam agraha has twofold meaning. by this combination of words. Those interested in the Krishna consciousness should not be eager to accept rules and regulations for economic development. Yet they should very faithfully accept scriptural rules and regulations meant for advancement. So we should be careful that we should not be eager to accept rules which are meant for economic development. Economic development can refer to different levels which are meant to satisfy the body or satisfy economic meaning bhoga. Bhoga can refer to many things. They should strictly follow the regulated principles by avoiding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and illicit and intoxication. So that's how Prabhupada explains about Niyamagra. So I hope it is clear, Niyamagra. Any questions, any clarifications you have about it? Janasangha and Niyamagra is clear. There is one question. Yes, Mataji. Poonam Mataji, you have a question? I have unmuted it.
Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in this, the name agraha, which you want to say, that is like the stubborn nature, like the person is forcefully doing it, which is not according to the principles. Does it the meaning of that?
Yes, he has some ulterior purpose and he's insisting on that rule, but he is not ready to follow the principle. Like Brahmanas are insisting that you give us respect. You give us respect because we are Brahmanas, but they are not following the duty of a Brahmana, that is to impart Vedic knowledge. So if they don't do that and they insist just on the rule, then that is called as Niyam Agraha. Okay, there is another question. Mohan Rup Sham Prabhu ji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this regarding this Janasangha, how we can practically follow this, because 90% of the population is not Krishna consciousness, right? So we have to deal with the external world. Or how we can strictly follow, or how we can follow as well as not to get disturbed, or what to be done. We cannot avoid associating with the material people or karmi people.
Okay.
So something to throw light on that.
Yes. Especially for not only congregation devotees, but for even preachers, it is unavoidable that we come in contact with the outside world, and the outside world are all non-devotees in one sense. So there are two things here we should take care, especially for those who are working. There they have association with their office staff, and that association is not considered as association because it is with respect to the work. There we should not have these 6 kind of loving exchanges. This is one thing we'll have to take care. If we start doing these loving exchanges, 6 types of loving exchanges, then their desires will affect our heart, and our desires, our material desires will grow. If someone is showing little bit interest and favor in Krishna consciousness, then we try out, preach to him, and slowly try to make them devotees, and then we can have step by step these loving exchanges with them until he gets slowly transformed. Otherwise, we should be like that monkey who has kept his heart on the tree and come. So that is how we should do. And with respect to the outside world, especially because we don't have that Jiva Daya, we don't have that pure compassion of a Mahabhagavat, when we see that the outside world is so much materialistic, we should see these things from the Shastra perspective, Shastra light, and we should see that how much materialism is rampant, and we should feel genuinely, at least The genuine compassion in the heart is not there, but you can reflect intellectually and see that, what is going to be their destination and how we should pray with genuine heartfelt prayers and try to see that if we can preach to them. So preaching is one way by which we can counteract this tendency not to fall prey to the association of Janasangha, worldly people. This is how we can avoid. But in the initial stages of our practice, there is always this, we discriminate. Oh, when I'm in the temple, it's Krishna consciousness. When I'm in the outside office, I'm in material consciousness. So we have this discrimination. But this is like in the initial stages, it's like a protection. We need that. But as we advance in Krishna consciousness, then by our spiritual practices, our consciousness, which gets spiritualized, also when we go in the material realm, we see that that is also even our arena of work where we are working, that consciousness permeates there in that region, and we are able to affect others like that. So best way is through preaching. That is the best way for us. And we should have a kind of a healthy attitude towards the outside world, which is filled with karmis and non-devotees and materialistic sinful people. We should have a healthy kind of attitude in the sense that we should feel genuinely how people are devoid of Krishna consciousness. Not that we criticize, oh, these karmis are into sense gratification. That is a negative attitude that we should avoid. I hope it is clear. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu, very clear, very practical tip. And what are the 6 exchanges, Prabhu?
6 exchanges are Dadati Pratikrinati, Guyamakati Prichati, Bhunte Bhojate Chaiva. We should not give some gifts to them and receive gifts from them, nor reveal our minds to them, and then nor take prasadam with them and give prasadam. These are 6 loving exchanges which are to be done only in the association of devotees. We'll come to that text for that time. Okay. So there is Surya Kund Prabhuji. I have unmuted you. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, as you told that Prabhupada is not favorable with the Western style dress and for book distribution. So now they are making rap music and pop music of Mahamanta. Is it favorable?
I don't have any comments about it. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, because now time they are making albums. I see in YouTube they are making albums with rap music and pop music of Mahamantra. So is it favorable or that was my question?
I said I don't want to make any comment about it.
Okay. I mean, it is favorable, I think so. What?
I don't want to make any comment about it.
Okay,
it depends. You see, for the outside world, maybe it is favorable.
Okay.
Maybe we might be able to attract, but we'll have to see. Individually, everyone has preferences. Now, whether you are, taking pleasure in hearing, concentrating more on the mantra or on the music, that is very important for us. Where is your focus? Is it on the music or is it on the mantra?
Okay.
When Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was leaving this world, he told his favorite bhajan was Shri Rupai Manjari Pada. That is bhajan which was sung by Narottam Das Thakur. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur requested somebody sing this song. And one of the sannyasis called out one devotee who used to very melodiously sing this song. And he used to often sing, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur liked it. But this time Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, no. You tell Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj to sing. And Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj never sang in a good melody. He was not a good singer. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to hear this song from a devotional perspective and not from a, how sweet he'll sing. So he told Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj to sing that song at the time of his
Okay.
death. So this is the principle. Where is our focus?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes, Poonam Mataji has another question.
Yes, Prabhuji, one more question. Sometimes it happen like even we are in the group like Sadhu Sangha or some group like that, but at least 1 or 2% are like that who are like Niyam Agraha person. Like they don't follow, they do follow the rules, but they don't follow the principles. Like sometimes they become very strict. Sometimes they have to, make the group to do it, whether they don't know personally what is happening. So is it right or wrong, and how to do, how to deal with this kind of a people?
Yeah, this is one of the important factors which we see within the Krishna conscious society, that sometimes we are strict about certain rules which are our preferences, and we impose them on others. This is one of the things which is very, very detrimental in our own practices, and it will affect others. Like, if we like a very light diet of, we are happy having morning Karela juice and neem juice, and then some boiled sabzi and some plain roti. And then we insist, no, all ashram devotees should have this diet because it is very, very good to control the senses. Then, there will be a lot of frictions. So it requires maturity, in fact, that one can be strict to oneself, but one has to be lenient to others. And one has to allow others to grow based on his level. But the problem in the conditioned state is that we impose our strictness, our rules, and we try to impose it on others. And this can be not a healthy sign within the association of devotees. So if you observe something, then carefully see how you can avoid it and be under the guidance of some senior mature devotees where they help you to grow naturally and spontaneously. That's important.
Okay. Thank you.
Clear? Yeah. Okay. So now we will go to the next theme after Niyamagra. Okay. Now, Jana Sangha has been explained here by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Now he's connecting Jana Sangha with Atyahar. If you remember, Atyahar is connected with all. Atyahar is connected with Prayas, Prajalpa, Niyamagra, Jana Sangha, and Lauria. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is connecting Jana Sangha with Atyahar. One should avoid association with Mayavadis, who simply blaspheme Vaishnavas, devotees. Mayavadi, Krishna Paradi. One should Bhukti Kamis, who are interested in material happiness. Mukti Kamis, who desire liberation by merging in the existence of the formless absolute, Brahman. Siddhi Kamis, who desire perfection of mystic yoga practice, are classified as Atyaharis. To associate with such persons is not at all desirable. So the Mayavadis are the Atyaharis, the Bhukti Kamis are Atyaharis, the Mukti Kamis are Atyaharis, and the Siddhi Kamis are also Atyaharis. So all these Atyaharis, we should avoid association. So this is how you can note down with your pen or pencil that this paragraph is speaking about Atyahar connected with Jana Sangha, and all these categories are Atyaharis. So you can see how Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has taken that root, Atyahar, and connected with everything. Now Atyahar with Laulia. Next paragraph. Desires to expand the mind by perfecting mystic yoga, merging into the existence of Brahman, that is Mukti, Mokshakami, or attaining whimsical material prosperity are all included in the category of Laulia. So Atyahar and Laulia is connecting now. What is Laulia? Too much greed to attain mystic perfections, too much desire for attaining liberation, moksha kami, and desire for attaining material prosperity. These are all falling in the category of Laulia. I think some Mataji had asked what is the etymological meaning of Laulia. Lul, it comes from the root word lulya. Lul means to expand, to increase, and it also means greed. And that is from where the word Laulia has come. And that is why in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 1 to 3, it is mentioned, Alol luptvam. Alol luptvam means no greed. Alol. Alol. Okay. Maybe I'll show you so that you'll be clear about it. Yeah. Here it is mentioned. Alol luptam. Alol luptam, Prabhupada says, freedom from greed. Lul, it comes from the root word lul, and lul means it is a prefix. Is a prefix. So lul is freed, greed, and alul means freedom from greed or no greed. So that is what is the etymological meaning of greed. Since I remember that, I'm just explaining it because we were discussing about greed now. So coming back to the discussion of what is greed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, all these fall in the category of Laulia. Where are we? We are here. Yeah. These all fall in the category of Laulia. All attempts to acquire material benefits or so-called spiritual advancement are impediments on the path of Krishna consciousness. That's why in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu it is said, Bhukti Kami, Mukti Kami, no, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Siddhi Kami, Sakale Ashant, Krishna Bhakta, Nishkam, Ataeva Shant. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is mentioned, Bhukti Mukti Pisachi Yavat Ridhi Vartate. As long as this Pisachi means a demon, demoness, in the form of desires for enjoyment and liberation, as long as they are there in the heart, Katam Bhakti Sukodasya. When, how can you attain the bliss of devotional? How can you experience the bliss of Bhakti Anand if as long as the desires for Bhukti and Mukti are there in your heart? So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also explains. So this desires for enjoyment, desires for liberation, these are anarthas in our heart. And slowly with the practice of sadhana bhakti, we have to become free. Then we can experience the real bliss of Krishna consciousness. So they are in one sense impediments in the path of Krishna consciousness. Now, the last 2-3 paragraphs, Prabhupada gives an example of Atyahar with respect to the context during 1970s when Prabhupada wrote Nectar of Instructions, and when there was this communist, the whole communist movement. USSR was a communist country, China was also a communist country, and now also it is. So this problem, what Prabhupada was perceiving, he has given that as an example of Atyahar. So Prabhupada speaks about the capitalist and the communist as an example of Atyahar, and how this problem of capitalism and communism can be solved by following the instruction of Rupa Goswami, and we can have spiritual communism. So that next few paragraphs speak about it, which we will start discussing now. Okay, so let us see what Prabhupada has to give. Now this example of the capitalist and communist is a contextual example. You have to understand what is the contextual example? In this particular context, during those times, it was relevant. Today, because USSR is no more USSR, it's no more a communist country. Many people, it's 50 years now, many people have forgotten about it. So we might not relate that example, because in that context in the 1970s, it was relevant, and Prabhupada is giving that contextual example. Today, we can, understanding the principle of Hatyar, in today's context, we can give a contextual example in 2021. And we can also find out what is the solution based on Rupa Goswami's advice. So this is 1970s example. So we need some background to understand what is capitalism and communism. It is now still there in its, in the last, you can say, traces are remaining with the communist movement, but definitely it is forgotten. So let us now first read it and try to understand these terms, what are capitalist and communist, and what is the solution Prabhupada is giving. Modern warfare waged between capitalists and communists is due to their avoiding the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami regarding Atyahar. Prabhupada is saying capitalist. Now the capitalists are the businessmen. They are in one sense Vaishyas, businessmen. Now they are intelligent and they can generate revenue and they can generate enterprises and money. Now these capitalists, in fact, they are a combination of administrators and businessmen, you can say, because businessmen are also administrators. In the traditional context, they were the Shatrias. The Shatrias used to manage the affairs of the state, of the kingdom, and they used to collect tax from the Praja. And it is not that the Shatriyas, although they used to live in royal opulence, but they were very, very dedicated to Praja and the Praja welfare. And whenever there were emergencies, they used to shower all the treasury wealth in order for the welfare of the Praja. Because they were God conscious, they were Raj Rishis. But this was in the Vedic tradition. But the capitalists, modern capitalists, they are businessmen, they are enterprisers, they generate money by employing the labor class. And the labor class, which is the communist, they say that we work very hard and we generate money for the businessmen. But what we get is very meager. And we are in downtrodden conditions. Because these capitalists, because of being greedy, because not following Rupa Goswami's instruction of Hatyar, in fact, they should always have welfare activities for the working class in terms of taking care of their educations, for their spiritual upliftment, for their material facilities. But when they become greedy and extract all the work from the labor class and generate all the money and they themselves enjoy, then the communists become envious. And that's how the whole capitalist and the communist tension began. And in many countries, European countries, this was there. So then there was a constant tussle between the capitalists and the communists. So this is how we can understand what are the communists and the capitalists. So Prabhupada further explains, modern capitalists accumulate more wealth than necessary. They do atyahar. And the communists, envious of their prosperity, want to nationalize all wealth and property. Oh, why? We have to work so hard and we get small income and the businessmen enjoy all the royal pleasures. So let us distribute all the wealth equally. So that is the communist philosophy. Unfortunately, the communists do not know how to solve the problem of wealth and its distribution. Consequently, when the wealth of the capitalist falls in the hands of the communist, no solution results. So the communist philosophy is that all wealth should be nationalized. Everything should be equally distributed. So in order to distribute the wealth also, if the money falls in the hands of the communist leaders, They themselves will be greedy and they will accumulate that money more for themselves and their families. And then there will be again strife within the communist also. So that's why no solution results, Prabhupada says. Opposed to these two philosophies, the Krishna conscious ideology states that all wealth belongs to Krishna. Thus, unless all wealth comes under the administration of Krishna, and Krishna's administration is done by the Shatrias, and the Shatrias do the administration based on the advice of the Brahmanas, based on spiritual principles to uplift the praja. There can be no solution to the economic problems of mankind. Nothing can be solved by placing wealth in the hands of the communist or the capitalist. Prabhupada gives the example. If $100 bill is lying on the street, someone will pick it up and put it in his pocket. Such a man is not honest. Another man may see the money and decide let it remain there, thinking that he should not touch another's property. Although the second man does not steal the money for his own purpose, he is unaware of its proper use. The third man who sees the $100 bill may pick it up, find the man who lost it and deliver it to him. This man does not steal the money to spend it for himself, nor does he neglect it and let it lie in the street. By taking it and delivering it to the man who has lost it, this man is both honest and wise. So Prabhupada is giving this example to explain how we have to recognize that all the wealth of this world, if we use it for our purpose, then we are thieves. Ishavasya principle. But all the wealth belongs to Krishna and we give it back to Krishna, and under Krishna's administration, that is through the Shatriyas, it is distributed as per one's quota. So that is the wise way to do this. So Prabhupada, the next paragraph says, simply transferring wealth from capitalist to communist cannot solve the problem of modern politics. For it has been demonstrated that when the communist gets money, he uses it for his own sense gratification. So this is a problem even with the communist. The wealth of the world actually belongs to Krishna. And every living entity, man and animal, has the birthright to use God's property for his maintenance. When one takes more than his maintenance requires, be he the capitalist or the communist, he is a thief. And such he is liable to be punished by the laws of nature. So in the Vedic times, the Shatriyas also had royal palaces, royal opulences. And all this opulence was coming from the taxes what they were collecting from the Praja. The Praja was very happy to partake 25% of their wealth to give it to the king, because the king is to protect the Praja. And the Kshatriya kings, although they were living in royal opulence, they were very charitable. This is one of the qualities of Kshatriya. And whenever there were emergencies, they used to pour out the wealth, just like in the 4 months of the rainy seasons, the clouds pour rain. Not only that, the Kshatriyas were very dharmic, and they used to lead the Praja towards dharma. And not only that, the Kshatriyas were exemplary examples. Because they were following the sadhus and the gurus, at the later end of their life, the Kshatriyas used to enthrone their children who were qualified to take up the post of the king, and they used to retire in the forest and do tapasya. So the Kshatriyas can go up to the Vanaprastha ashram. They cannot take up the sannyasa ashram. So the Praja is to see that such a royal king who lived in such royal opulence, even he is what? Detached, and he's taking the Vanaprastha life. So the Praja is to be motivated also to follow such an exemplary king. So this was how it was there in the Vedic times. But today, if you see, the capitalists don't have these qualities of the Kshatriyas, and that is why the tension happens. And then they come up with these kinds of philosophies that all the wealth should be distributed equally. But that wealth which they want to distribute equally That wealth is neither of the capitalist nor of the communist. That wealth is of Krishna. So it is like the thieves who plan and, do a robbery, and then they say that we will distribute the wealth equally. So it doesn't make any sense. Prabhupada, that's why he's giving the Upanishads principle. The wealth of the world should be used for the welfare of all living entities. For that is the plan of Mother Nature. Everyone has the right to live by utilizing the wealth of Lord. We have the right to use our wealth, Lord's wealth. When people learn the art of scientifically utilizing the Lord's property. Now, what is this scientifically utilizing the Lord's property? It is a science, and the Ishavasya principle explains that cows, by nature, they eat grass. That is their quota. The tiger, by nature, eats flesh. So that is that quota. Similarly, for the humans, their quota is milk. And it is a natural way of extracting milk, scientific way of taking milk. That is milking the cow, and not by slaughtering the cow and eating the meat. So scientifically, you should learn the art of using the Lord's property. They will no longer encroach upon one another's right. This ideal society can be, and then an ideal society can be formed. The basic principle for such a spiritual society is there in the Ishavasya principle of Upanishads. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kin jagatyam jagat tena tektena bhunjita magrat kasviddanam. So this Ishavasya principle is that everything animate and inanimate belongs to the Lord. Tena tektena bhunjita. One should accept whatever is only one's quota. That is tena tektena bhunjita. How to understand one quota? Prabhupada gives a lot of examples in that Upanishads. I gave few examples. And one should not encroach upon another's property. Ma grit kasvidhanam, which doesn't belong to him. Prabhupada concludes, Krishna conscious devotees know very well that this material world is designed by the complete arrangement of the Lord to fulfill all the necessities of life for all living beings, without having to encroach upon the life or rights of another. This complete arrangement affords the proper quota of wealth for everyone according to his real needs. And thus everyone may live peacefully according to the principle of plain living and high thinking. Unfortunately, materialists who have neither faith in the plan of God nor any aspiration for higher spiritual development misuse their God-given intelligence only to augment their material possessions. They devise many systems such as capitalism and materialist communism to advance their material positions. So all these different types of isms are simply meant for, to increase their material position. They are not interested in the laws of God nor in a higher goal. Always anxious to fill their unlimited desires for sense gratification, they are conspicuous by their ability to exploit their fellow living beings. So they exploit even their fellow living beings. So this is the example Prabhupada has given about Atyahar of the capitalist and the communist. I explained this Jana Sangha, the Mayavadis, Bhaktis, Muktikamis, Siddhis, the Laurias, the three types, mystic yogis performing mystic yoga to attain mystic yoga, merging in Brahman, material prosperity. Now, I have not put this. So here in the last paragraph, Prabhupada concludes, when human society gives up these elementary faults, Prabhupada says elementary or they are constitutional faults, enumerated by Rupa Goswami, all enmity will cease between men and animals, capitalists and communists, and so forth. In addition, all problems of economic and political maladjustment and instability will be solved. This pure consciousness is awakened by the proper spiritual education and practice offered scientifically by the Krishna conscious movement. So Prabhupada is mentioning that if we become free from these constitutional faults, which Rupa Goswami has said, Atyar, then all enmity will cease. between capitalists and communists, between men and animals. This is what following these principles can result. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Jharkhand forest, by his chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he was able to make the tigers and deers dance, because both are enemies, but they gave up that enmity. During Prabhupada's time, there was Amrish Prabhuji. He is Alfred Ford's grandson, Henry Ford's grandson, Alfred Ford. And he became a devotee. And there was one Mataji who was also coming from a very royal family, and they were also in the car manufacturing business. And both the Ford company and this other company, I don't know which was that, both were enemies because both had competition. So Prabhupada got both of them married and both families united by that. So this is how enmity can cease if we take up to this principle of bhakti and become free from the fault of atyahar. And this is possible, Prabhupada says, by spiritual training and education. Training and practice, education and practice is required. First is the in English terms, it is called as orthodoxy. Orthodoxy means the doctrine or the principles. And next is called as orthopraxy. Orthopraxy means the practices. So based on the philosophy, there are practices. So we have to first understand the philosophy by spiritual education, and then we have to practice the philosophy. So orthodoxy, and orthopraxy, both we have to do. And that training is given by the Krishna conscious movement. So Prabhupada so much emphasized on training his disciples in understanding the philosophy which he has given. This Krishna conscious movement offers a spiritual community that can bring about a peaceful condition in the world. So, spiritual communism, as Bhagavad communism, Prabhupada said, every intelligent man should purify his consciousness and rid himself of the above mentioned 6 hindrances to devotional service by taking wholeheartedly shelter of this Krishna conscious movement. So in these 2 paragraphs, Prabhupada concludes his discussion. So any questions, any clarifications in the last theme which we discussed, the concept of a contextual example of capitalism and communism, how that is a problem of atyahar, and then how Prabhupada has summarized in the conclusion the 6 faults. There is one question. Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, in this time nowadays, like if you see in Kali Yuga, the people who are in a government or ministers, so they are coming in this capitalist,
Yeah, they are administrators also. The ministers, the government officers, they are all administrators. It is a mix of both. Administration and like Shatrias and Vaishyas, both categories, there is a mix. I'll explain you. The Brahmanas, their consciousnesses, they are more going for knowledge. Money is secondary. Money comes on its own. That is how traditionally it was. They used to depend on the charity. But today, if you see, all the Brahmanas, especially the Sri Vaishnavas in South India, all are in America running big corporations. Practically the whole of America is run by entire South Indians. So they are Brahminical in nature, but they also want money. Because second is the Shatrias. The Shatrias are basically administrators. They like to manage. They like to control. And for them, control is primary, money is secondary. First is control. The Vaishyas, they have more love for money. And in order to maintain money or to have money, they want to control. So Vaishyas have secondary control. Control helps them to maintain the money position. So that is how their nature is. So yes, you see in today's context, those who are administrators who run the governments, they want within this 5 years, whatever tenure they have, they want to amass more and more. For how many generations, I don't know. And at last, what happens is, today all the people see them as examples. So they are also doing, so why not we should do the same thing? So that is setting a bad example. So that is how we'll have to see it.
So Prabhuji, can you give me like again the summary of this, because I'm still confusing this capitalist and this.
Prabhupada is giving the example of the capitalist and the communist strife, the tension which was there in the 1970s. He is giving that contextual example during that time, that the root fault between both of them is atyahar. The capitalists want to amass, because being greedy, they want to amass more and more wealth for their own enjoyment. And although they are enterprising, they are businessmen, they can generate money. They can generate money because that is their nature, but they are not charitable in nature, and they don't take welfare of their workers in the company or in the factory. So that's why the labor class, they revolt. And that is how these conflicts have started, the capitalist and the communist conflict. And the root is, Prabhupada is saying, atyahar. That is how Prabhupada is giving that example of the capitalist and communist as an example of atyahar.
And Prabhuji, this bhukti, mukti, and the others, what are these?
Bhukti means enjoyment, gross sense gratification. We want to enjoy at the bodily level. That is bhukti. So bhoga means to enjoy. So as we practice sadhana bhakti, slowly the tendency to enjoy the senses should come down. This is gross. Then there is mukti. Mukti is like desire to get liberated. Sometimes, devotees are put in some suffering condition, they are hospitalized, and that time they might pray, when I'll become liberated from this hospital life, when this misery, this world is a misery, let me get out of this material world. So even this kind of a desire is kind of an anartha, because devotion means just to do activities to please Krishna. And the desire for liberation is, it is not anya bilashita shunyanta. So sometimes when we are put in these conditions, we want to become free from those conditions. And we might pray also that, make me free from this condition. So that means the subtle desires to become liberated is there. So we have to become free from those desires. And Siddhi Kami means to, have some mystic, siddhis. So these are also quite subtle. And sometimes, when you become senior, you call the junior to come here. Just by waving your hand, he'll come running. So you have some siddhi just by movement of your hand. He's coming running and serving you. So then you get intoxicated by it. It's very, very subtle. You get very intoxicated. Just you wave your hand and he comes running to serve you. So you have some siddhi in your hands. So these are kinds of things we should be aware about, which we should feel free. And these are obstacles even in the path of Krishna consciousness, as Prabhupada is explaining.
So siddhi means, mystic means the power.
Yeah, there are mystic siddhis. Even the devotees also get some mystic siddhis when they get highly advanced.
But in this Kali Yugas, I don't think so anyone has a mystic power.
There are some who practice Ashtanga Yoga in the Himalayas. There are some who have some small siddhis. They have very few. But there are different kinds of siddhis which we are not aware. Somebody who is having a Mauna Vrata, he's practiced Mauna Vrata for 12 years, he can just attract people. People get attracted to him. Somebody who has Vak Siddhi, just by his speech, he can attract thousands of people. I know someone here who can do that. For his pravachan, minimum 10,000 people come. Minimum. because he has got some Vak Siddhi from his previous births. So these are kind of subtle siddhis which are, very minuscule today, which are there with someone who has practiced in his previous life. But these are also obstacles in the path of bhakti that we should understand. Okay. Okay, so we have finished text 2. Tomorrow we will take up text 3. And text 3 will take only 2 classes. It's very interesting. Text 3. What are the 6 items favorable for pure devotion? So tomorrow we will begin that. There is one more question. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, you were just saying that anything that deals with the economic development is the Atyaha. But this is what we teach the students as a lecturer, like when we teach them about the compound interest, simple, we just teach them the strategy, how they should do the investment and how to make profit and economic development. So the whole concept of this material education is Atyahara, no Prabhu? So we will, do we get it? Because since we are doing it and we are making money through that. So some karma is involved in that also, Prabhu.
Yes, that's why Prabhupada, if you see in the first purport, first canto, first chapter purport, he says modern education is simply sending children to slaughterhouses. Because the training what they have given is just on, how to earn and make money more. It's only based on economic development. So from that context, Prabhupada is speaking there in that purport. And if you see Prahlad Maharaj, what was Shand and Aramarka speaking to them? He was just speaking about, politics and economic development. And that's why Prahlad Maharaj was not interested. So education is at different levels. One is transcendental education. And Prahlad Maharaj speaks about it. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam. This is transcendental education. And the next level is education in the mode of goodness, where we teach about virtues, good qualities. So that is also education. But today's education is mostly in the mode of passion and ignorance, where there is simply economic development and there is exploitation. So today's education is mostly in the modes of passion and ignorance. Now we are in this situation, we are caught in this situation, what to do? So we'll have to strike a balance that we give the modern education, which is required because we are in that, we are in that stream now. At the same time, we should give transcendental education, what Prahlad Maharaj teaches as Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. A balance has to be struck, what to do. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai, Shri Updeshamrit ki jai. Hare Krishna.